In today's video we're doing a 3.5 mile walk, circular walk around Stowmarket, and we're taking in more than a dozen little history points on this walk. Come and join me. So today's walk starts outside the food museum here. If you don't know where that is, it's just opposite Asda, which is there. And we're going to see if we can find about a dozen points of history on a little town centre walk. As I said, this little town centre walk, we're not really sort of going out town, we're just on the sort of edge of town, and we just point out little points of history. And so if you want to do this with the family and see how many bits of history you can spot, do it. Or you can find the downloadable map of the video on my website, walksandwanders.com. There's also a link to that website in the YouTube description. Now you might think as we set off across Asda car park that we're not going to get to any history spots just yet, but actually Asda car park is one of the history spots. Before Asda was built, in fact it was Gateway, I think was the supermarket that built the shopping thing behind us. This area of town down there was a cattle market, and this car park was actually known as Cricket Meadow because it was both the cricket pitch and the football pitch. So the tarmac car park actually is the site of a bit of history of Stowmarket. You'll know that if you grew up here and you're sort of ancient like me, you would remember the Cricket Meadow. For those of us who are foreigners, according to proper Suffolk people, yeah, if you only lived here 30 years like me, then you wouldn't know that that had been a cricket pitch and a football ground. So we're now heading towards a recreation ground for our next little history spot. So just turn left out of Iliff Way and on Finborough Road now, and the recreation ground is immediately in sight, just slightly to the right over there. Going to cross and see the next little history spot. So as you come onto the recreation ground, take this left-hand path that goes round the edge, along the edge of the Finborough Road side. We're heading to the Memorial Gates to have a look at something there. So I think these gates are normally open, so you'll be able to do this. I'm not sure what you do if they're not, but I think the side ones are normally open. So we're looking for the only female and the only civilian mentioned on the memorial gates. So Second World War, so it must be these in the middle here. Yeah, so the name we're looking for, all the others are in alphabetical order, but Mrs. Farrow, that trucker pass, Mrs. Farrow is the only female and only civilian. She's not in alphabetical order, so it's on the right hand panel for the Second World War, and you'll see Mrs. Farrow's, Rhoda Farrow's name at the bottom there. So the story of Rhoda Farrow is absolutely tragic.
Rhoda Lilly, wife of the above, killed by enemy action January 31st 1941, age 59.
Yeah. On Friday the 31st of January 1941, a lone German bomber circled Stowmarket. After flying over the marketplace, the bomber turned backwards towards the town and headed towards the Congregational Church. It is possible that the intended target was a telephone exchange behind the church, but as the bomber unloaded its bombs, they fell directly onto the Congregational Church, completely destroying it. The Reverend Eric Weir, the Congregational minister, was also the head air raid warden at the time. But the more tragic story happened just behind the Congregational Church. Mrs. Rhoda Farrow had been enjoying a brief visit from her son, Ronald, who was on leave from the RAF. He had brought down his fiancée from Manchester to meet his mother. On the fateful day, Mrs. Farrow had just seen her son off at Stowmarket Station as he returned to duty. After the bombing, she was found in the rubble with her hat, coat and gloves on, and still had her door keys in her hand. The bomb had not only destroyed the church, but Mrs. Farrow's house immediately behind the church. Rhoda Farrow is the only female and the only civilian listed on Stowmarket's memorial gates. We are now heading towards the health centre, Stowmarket Cemetery. We'll just head across the recreation ground. I guess as we go across the recreation ground, I should mention these houses here that were, until recent years, it was the middle school. Before that, the secondary model school, I think. And that's all gone. We've got some new houses now. Now on Recreation Road. When we get to the end of Recreation Road, we're going to turn left towards the health centre. So we turn left onto Violet Hill Road, and again this had a different name. Back in the day it used to be Cemetery Lane, but it was changed because residents in this care home, I think it's been rebuilt, but the care home that stood there back in the day, were not enamoured living on Cemetery Road. I think made them feel like they're in God's waiting room. So it's now Violet Hill Road, which I think is named after Violet Hill House, which is now the Masonic Hall. You get to the health centre, just carry on a little bit further to the cemetery gates, and we're going to cross into the old cemetery. So on your left here you'll see the current cemetery, but we are going to cross into the old cemetery, which is no longer used for burials, although I think you can still have ashes buried here. But this is really now managed for wildlife, and I think some people may complain, that it's not well kept, but that it is well kept because it's really trying to help with the biodiversity and wildlife. There are little signs explaining around. So as you come in to the old cemetery that way, only way you can come if you stay on the path is to this roundabout. So this is where like the funeral cars would do a U-turn when they were bringing coffins to their chapels, which we'll go to in a minute. At the foot of this little roundabout you'll see a little stone with lots of names on, and this is the memorial for the gun cotton victims. Now I think there are some people missing off here, but this is particularly for those who don't have a memorial stone, a headstone on their grave, and it especially mentions the little children. And I did a whole video about there's a little girl called Mary Mount who was 12 years old. That's a whole other video that I've got on my channel. But yeah, 20 odd people died, so there didn't used to be a memorial, even though it's like the biggest thing that's ever happened in this town. Lots of property damage, over, was it 28 people I think died, and absolutely devastating for the town. And some people weren't even found, they were just kind of vaporised, they were that close to the blast. So from the memorial stone there we head downhill between the two chapels, and the two chapels have an interesting story, in that as you walk down the way I am, the chapel on your left was for non-conformist funerals, i.e. anyone that wasn't Church of England, and the other chapel on your right is the Church of England chapel. And being a bit of a god botherer, I have taken a couple of funerals in the Church of England chapel many moons ago, although the burial was obviously at the new cemetery on the other side of the road. As you come down the hill with it, and you're sort of level with the Church of England chapel, so the path goes straight down to the road there, but you just go between these two trees here on your left. There's no grave marker, but this is the area where the parts of the victims of the gun cotton were buried, because they couldn't, there was arms and legs and all sorts of bits of bodies. They didn't know who was who, but they are buried near this tree here. Continue down the cemetery path towards Bury Road, and just outside the gate here you will see a pelican crossing, and we're going to go across there to the side of the road. So then we're now heading towards Lidl. We'll go just past Lidl and down a little side track in a minute. A great historic site, Roman settlement of Lidl. Not really. Carefully cross in front of Lidl, past the second-hand car shop. Just along here is our next turning and also our next history point. So we're now looking on the left for a little track called Pound Lane, just past the place with all the oil tankers. But this is Pound Lane, but before we get down there, the next history is this house that's on the corner of Pound Lane that used to be a pub. It's the Bell Inn, which stands at 18 Bury Road on the corner of what was Sick House Lane, now Pound Lane. It was open 1836 and closed in 1919. A newspaper from 1880 stated that a man from London visited the landlord of the Bell Inn and sold him a donkey. The animal is said to be capable of 1 mile in 3.5 minutes, and it caused quite a sensation at the railway station when it was elevated into a horse box. So we've turned down Pound Lane now. This little track used to have a different name, but before we get to that, the reason it's called Pound Lane, because obviously there used to be a cattle market in town, cattle, sheep, whatever, and when the farmers brought livestock into town, they were staying overnight for the market or whatever, or for any other reason, or they'd bought some livestock. There was a little pound down here, a little pen or pound, which is where they used to put the animals till they were ready to take them back to the farm. But on old maps this had a different name. Before it was Pound Lane, it was called Sick House Lane, and the reason it was called Sick House Lane is at the end of the track, really. We'll look at that in a minute. But also, before the railway came, this would have been a track that went on to the old Newton Road. So this ancient cottage behind me used to be the infectious disease hospital at one time, and there are stories of soldiers coming there after the war. That wasn't always infectious disease, but yeah, for most of its life I think it was an infectious disease hospital, but a little cottage hospital on the edge of Stowmarket. So we've now turned right onto, I think, is this Hamilton Road? Hamilton Way. I'll tell you in a minute. Across to Crown Street and Regent Street. They both have a little bit of a history connection. So we've now come to the junction with Crown Street. We've got Bond Street. A little bit further down is Regent Street, and Crown Street and Regent Street have a bit of history. So we've gone straight across down Bond Street, but Crown Street and Regent Street and Bond Street I think were built around the time of the coronation. I definitely know which monarch it was, but thought it might be easier for you if I just put it on the screen here. So Regent is connected with monarchy and crown, obviously, and Bond Street is just the thought it was it's a bit like Bond Street in London, not quite connected with the coronation. So go all the way down Bond Street till it comes to what I think is Stokeland Street, Stokeland Road, Stokeland Street, and this little junction here with Union Street is the Methodist Church, built in 1836. I wonder if John Wesley ever preached there. He did travel the country, known as the founder of Methodism, although he himself was a lifelong Anglican. past the chip shop. That's a very difficult thing to do. And oh, this is Regent Street now. At the end of Regent Street, we're turning left, and as you turn left out of Regent Street, you'll quickly see the bridge for the River Gipping. So this area's has got a lot of history. Not only you've got the old ancient Pickerel Inn public house there, but this area has all been modernised now. But this area was the extent of the navigation, and big sort of boats, barges, came up here just to this sort of point of this road bridge. I think it was a little bit higher back in the day. And a lot of Stowmarket was all malt houses. Obviously we've still got Muntons and Fisons on the Needham Road there at that end of town, but a lot of malt houses. And this little river was sort of widened, and they put a couple of locks in, so it's made like a canal to get the boats right into Stowmarket. So this would have been a very busy area, and not only the Pickerel Inn, but there was the Barge and a couple of other pubs just round the corner there, and they all catered for the people that lived on the barges. Come up there, drop their cargo off, and then go and get drunk in the pub, I guess, in the evening, and food and all that. There's one story, I think it's at the Barge, you could for a shilling you could get a pie, a pint and a fight on a Friday night at the Barge. So we carry on down the riverbank now. We come to Station Road, and as you emerge onto the road you'll see the station there, but we're not going to the station today. And then I think that's the King's Head. It's closed now, but that was a pub, and that was the Railway Hotel. So once the railway came, a lot of the barge traffic stopped. So we're going down the steps onto the riverbank, continuing along the river, and this nightclub here is an old malt house. So you can see the boats would come right to where the malt was processed, probably taken in through one of these doors here. But I don't think you get a boat down here now, but it's quite a nice nature walk. I have to say, currently there's a group that pick up all the litter around this area, empty litter and trash out of the river, and clear all the litter off the footpath. I think they do that once a month, and that's a great service. But my question is, who's dropping the litter? If it's you, stop it. No flipping excuse. Put your litter in your pocket and take it home with you, or find a proper bin. So obviously the other side of that hedge you can hear traffic as the relief road sort of follows the line of the river. I showed you in the cemetery the memorial to the gun cotton explosion, or the victims of the gun cotton explosion. We're going to go down here a bit and find an information board that's also a memorial to the victims of the gun cotton, and it's actually at the site where the explosion happened. So the great thing about this walk is, if you've already had enough, you can cross the bridge here, get back into town and go home, no problem, but you'll miss out on the next few bits. And as you walk down here, just have a look at this mural on the bridge.
To the river we go, leave our worries on the shore and drift away. On the river we know, sometimes the perfect words are never said. I spilled my coffee, I don't feel like talking, my worries just keep growing.
Even though this area here is quite industrial really, plus that's kind of what the area was for. When you come to this bridge here, it's a newish bridge, but on the concrete on this bridge they've etched some murals about the sort of history of industry in Stowmarket. You've got what looks like a loom or something, so there must have been some cloth making, yeah, probably. And then there's a lady hanging out washing, but I think that's really about there's quite a big basket making community in Stowmarket. And you've got a guy shoveling coal, and that relates to the Stowmarket Iron Foundry. In fact, I think there were a couple of foundries in Stowmarket. And then further across, yeah, I think that's basket weaving, and not quite sure. And then it's a little bit overgrown, so I can't quite see. On this side it's a bit clearer because it's not covered up by the vegetation. So yes, weaving, basket making, iron foundry, and then this one I wasn't really sure. I thought it was basket making. It's actually the lawnmower factory. There's a lot of yeah, Atco was here, and now Bosch, I think. Yeah, so the last three are all to do with the making of lawnmowers. Coming to a little footpath crossing where the footpath meets the PPG paintworks, and a lot of people get intimidated here and think they're trespassing, but you're not, because the footpath goes through PPG land, and yeah, there's two sections through PPG land, and they are public rights of way, so don't be intimidated. Don't think you can't come off here, because we are going to come off the river in a minute in the middle of all that. So first of all, we're going to go straight across the PPG section of land to continue on the riverbank to see the Gun Cotton Memorial down here, and then we're going to retrace our steps a bit and go through another bit and come out on the road on the other side of the river. So I remember when I first came down here, it was ICI then, but exactly the same. And if you've not been down here before, it can be quite intimidating, but I think they've tried to make it as clear as possible where the footpath is, and I'm sure someone in security will point it out if you've gone the wrong way. But I think it's straightforward really, just don't be put off by all the fences and gates and keep out signs. So this whole site on your left, all the sort of whirring noises coming out of on pipes and Lord knows what, this is now the PPG paint factory, but for a long time it was the Gun Cotton Works, the explosives factory, and in the 1800s there was a massive accident and half the town blew up, and we're going to look at the sort of information board and memorial to that event, which is located pretty much where the explosion occurred. See, I find this interesting. You've got this incredibly industrial scene on this side, and yet nature continues along the river. This is a wildlife corridor through the town. That's why you've got to kind of protect these corridors, because they're incredibly important. And the Pickerel project, it says here, have done some work on the river to encourage wildlife. I think it's great that there's a couple of groups, I think, looking after the river. Interesting that a family that was producing stuff that was so destructive actually is now world renowned for awarding a Peace Prize each year. So we're now going to retrace our steps a little bit back the way we came. We're going to cross the river, and this is a bit that people get freaked out about, but it is a public right of way, Obviously some workers down there having the break, but I'll show you the route back out and across the river.
Get that up.
So I hope that was kind of clear. Basically, if there isn't you know, a barrier that goes up and down or a lock gate, then you know, and you cross, it's a bridge across the river or whatever, you're probably guaranteed that that's a public right of way, and the ways I have come there are public rights of way. And yeah, don't be intimidated by that. Obviously the industrial complex has got to keep people out of their sections, but they've also made way for their public rights of way to carry on. So this is the tail end of Bridge Street, which so named because that bridge we've just come off was the main bridge over there, but it's too weak now, so it's only for foot walkers. What I'm trying to say. Then we're going to come out here. We'll just come to these little bollards with the central reservation and follow the green cross code, and when clear to do so we shall cross. Of course, as we've got here, the World and His Wife is last one's just leaving Bury. Right, moving swiftly on. I think we can get across there. That's enough. Through the little fence here, you've got the end of Taker's Lane there, if you're aware of that street. This is now Bridge Street, and we're just going to go up here a little bit, and we're going to head for Lime Tree Place. There's a bit of history there. I've done a video about Taker's Lane, and the street name there used to be quite probably a one for thieves, because Taker's Lane was the main route up to Stowmarket, I think, back in the days of horses and carts. And this area here of Bridge Street and Lime Tree Place, on the old maps when it was built, was known as California, which I think has to do with the time. I think they were built in the time of the American Gold Rush, and because there was a lot of building here, I think there was just some sort of link and it became known informally as California. But the word California does appear on an old Stowmarket map. We come to this fork in the road, Bridge Street straight ahead, Lime Tree Place to the right. We're going to go down Lime Tree Place. I think I'm right in saying this house on the corner, it's got a sign on saying Prospect House. Fairly sure that was a bakery back in the day. This whole this little area had its own community, and that was a bakery. And further up here on the left was the old post office, so it had its own post office in Lime Tree Place. And then on the left side of the road, as you come up at number 22, well, it's 22 A, B and C by the look of it. If you look up, you'll see a Green King plaque on that building. That was the Unicorn pub, and I'm well, not old enough, but I lived here long enough. I actually went for a pint in the Unicorn back in the day. On this little funny house on the corner, this funny shaped house, that used to be the local shop, So you had a community here, bakers. Alright. Oh yeah, you might be in this one. Yeah, this little community had that shop there, had the post office, had the bakers, and possibly a couple of other things. Just chatting to an old boy, and he reckons there was someone that sold sort of stuff to repair boats, which would make sense in the days when all the malt came up the river on a boat. So we continued to the end of Lime Tree Place. Lime Tree Place comes out pretty much opposite Red Gables, which at the minute is it's a resource centre for all sorts of charities, mostly well-being charities, mental health charities, handicap charities, literacy charities. They're in that big house there. I might just go up the drive, only because I used to have an office in here. My charity, RSVP Trust, and I'm sure the guys won't mind me just paying a little visit. There's a list of activities near the gate there if you wanted to come, but this house is quite historic. You can, if you peer through the trees, you can see it there. But it's actually built, I think I'm right in saying, by and for Octavius Seaman, who was the founder of Seaman Builders. But a beautiful old house, and at some point, and then the Prentice family who ran the gun cotton works, one of the Prentices lived here, and then this has been extended a bit now, but the original building was built, I think, by Octavius Seaman for his daughter, and became the first library in Stowmarket. She was a avid reader, I think, and for her birthday one year he built a library for the town. Now you can hire that room for your events and functions. Just contact Red Gables. Just behind the trees there, it's a little bit hidden now, but that big pink house there used to be the farmhouse for Lime Tree Farm, and I think the land of Lime Tree Farm was where Lime Tree Place is, where we've just come up. At one time it was the kind of priest's house for the Roman Catholic Church, and then I know it used to be the home of Mike Arbon, no longer with us, God rest his soul, who was for many years the head of middle school. Yeah, he lived there. I went for dinner there once. It's a lovely old house, and I'm not sure who has it now, but you see him very often. And then on your left you'll spot the Regal Cinema, Regal Theatre. But before the Regal was here, and it has been here a long time, this piece of land here was where the car park is and the cinema. This was known as Duke's Meadow, and this is where the fairground would come each year. And obviously Duke's Meadow links into the name of the building that's now a restaurant. It was the Duke's Head pub back in the day. But yeah, this car park used to be Duke's Meadow, where the fairground was held. This is interesting, actually filming in the town centre today, because I've had about 3 conversations there with people who have watched the videos. And then obviously the town centre's changed a lot over the years, but you'll see the old Fox Yard here. It's had a new lease of life in recent years, and that was the old Fox Hotel, and that entrance there would have been where the stagecoach went in to bring people to the hotel. So this is Stowmarket United Reformed Church, which is the site of the old Congregational Church, and this is where the bomb fell on Stowmarket. And Rhoda Farrow, who we talked about at the beginning of the video, lived at the back here, and she just got home and the bomb fell and killed her, unfortunately, demolished the house. Stowmarket stores there used to be Jubies, and if you actually look up to the roof you can see the old painted sign that still says Jubies up there. There's a little bit of history that most people don't notice. And as you come past the British Heart Foundation shop, you take a left up. I think this is, yes, Marriott's Walk. It says so there on the wall, look. And this just brings you out of the town centre a little bit. Just walk up here to the little green area. And there's a little bit of history just before we come to the end of our little history walk. We turn right by this little green section here in front of Abbott's Hall. And this is known as the camping lands. That used to puzzle me when I first came here and people referred to it as camping lands. Because why would you camp here? But it's nothing to do with tents or sleeping under canvas. This is just a little remnant. So it used to be like the size of a football pitch, and the rest of it is now the front lawn of Abbott's Hall, which is now part of the Food Museum. That big house there, but they've obviously blocked the wall off, but this bit was left. But yeah, after church on Sunday there was this game in a lot of villages in Suffolk and Norfolk called camping. It's like a cross between football and rugby, extremely violent. Sometimes people die. There's virtually no rules, but yeah, I think you get the ball to the other end of the pitch. But you know, just punching, kicking and all sorts, no wonder people died. So if you survived a camping match, you were doing well. To this little section here at the end of Crow Street, and you've got the big fancy gates for Abbott's Hall up there, which, as I say, is part of the museum. And you used to be able to go around the house for free because it was lottery funded. I'm not sure if that's still the case or not, but it's well worth a look, even if it's part of the entrance to the museum. And then these two little cottages here were apparently the dairy cottages, and there's a little information board here and pictures of a couple that used to live there. And obviously looking down Crow Street you can see the parish church and the spire. The house right in front, which is an accountant's, used to be the house of the pharmacist, the chemist. So we walk up the side of the fence of the Food Museum and back to our starting point just outside Asda. So that was a little self-guided history walk. As I said, there's a downloadable map and information sheet. There's a link to that in the description below this YouTube video and on my website walksandwonders.com. If you find this video on there, then you will find the link for the map if you want to do the walk yourself. Thanks for watching today. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, notification bell so you get notifications of new videos, and I'll see you next time.